So another day, another video. Today we're going to actually be talking about another interview Todd Howard just recently gave, and it was actually a really good interview. And if you haven't watched it, maybe give it a watch. I'm going to go over some of the major points in the video, but some of the more nitty-gritty stuff I kind of leave out. But after this video, if you're interested, I will have it linked down below. It's really well done. The interviewer really, I think did his research. He had good, thoughtful questions, and they got pretty deep on both Fallout 76 and Starfield. They also talked a bit about the Elder Scrolls Blades, but I'm gonna not really talk too much about that in this video. So the way I'm gonna structure this one is we're gonna start off with all the Fallout 76 content, and then towards the end we get into Starfield and just kind of a mix talking about the bigger picture of some of the games. So right off the bat, Todd Howard kind of confirmed what a lot of us were thinking, especially the way he's talked about Starfield in other interviews, that it is going to be a single player game, and did say that Fallout 76 is going to be different. It's going to be a different game, but it's not going to be a usual game. So it seems like they really are just kind of doing like a one-time spin-off. I imagine if the multiplayer component of Fallout 76 becomes, massively successful and everyone just wants that in their future games, they'll look at it, but as of right now, it doesn't really seem like there's any plans to bring multiplayer to Starfield or even the Elder Scrolls 6. And the interviewer asked a really good question, and I feel like a lot of the other interviewers weren't diving too deep into this, but he says, can you get a traditional Fallout experience from Fallout 76? So Todd Howard kind of responded with, it depends on what your traditional Fallout experience is going to be all about. Do you want a quest line that's heavy in NPCs and a ton of dialogue? If that's what you're looking for, no, you can't get that from Fallout 76. This is something that we've largely seen, but we don't actually know the extent to it. Seemingly, it's going to be very absent, and the only interactions you'll have are with robots or kind of found quests. But if you enjoy the exploring aspects of these games, this is going to have a lot of that. So I guess that's a good thing for some of us. Todd Howard even goes a little bit further to start talking about the story of this game, and I don't think he's done this in any other interview, so this is pretty interesting. One of the major questions that he says will be answered in this story is what happened to the people on the outside. It's going to be one of the major themes they explore and what many of the quests that do exist will look at. In addition, how some of these new threats, I imagine, some of these new radiated creatures, or even some of the Raider-esque humans that did pop up, how they got there, what they're doing, and maybe just some of the backstory and lore behind them. He said in previous interviews that a lot of the new creatures, and we have 63 creatures confirmed for this game, a lot of the new creatures are actually going to be based out of West Virginian lore. There is going to be a main quest of some sort, but also a bunch of side quests. And something with those side quests, a lot of the side quests are actually going to be events. This is something they've also talked about in the past, but more or less on the map at any given time, an event may start and you'll get a notification on screen. It'll say, all right, go to the farm. There's a zombie attacking the farm. I don't actually think there's zombies in this game, but either way, you get the idea. All the players on the server will see that and potentially all rush to the same location. Kind of creates a little bit of a catalyst event to create conflict or trade or some player interaction. So in this interview, Todd said that's going to be a major component of the side questing system and one thing that's very different from previous games, although there still will be main quests. So another great question by the interviewer, he was really asking about if you're trying to do one of the main quests and somebody just nukes you, that's got to be really frustrating. How are you planning on dealing with that? And Todd said, well, when you actually die in this game, there's little to no consequence. You're going to just instantly respawn. He didn't say where you respawn, but probably at whatever camp you have set up or something like that. And in addition, he said you don't lose your items on death. In the trailer or one of the gameplays we actually saw, when you kill another player, you just get caps. So seemingly that's the only benefit you actually get from killing other people, maybe to try and disincentivize griefing and things like that. He talked a little bit about building and how you could build almost anywhere except some of the key locations. You can't build right outside of different spawn points or areas that will conflict with quests. And even beyond that, you can actually move your little settlement anywhere. Once you actually kind of load it back up, you can have a blueprinted version of it, so you could kind of take it along with you and then place it back down exactly how it was. And that was largely all he said about Fallout 76, but then they got a bit into Starfield, which it was pretty interesting. He actually dove a bit deeper into Starfield, I'd say, in this interview than any other interview I've seen thus far. So asking about the progress on Starfield, Todd Howard said it's playable. He said that before, but he more kind of specified here, sections of the game are playable. They're getting an understanding of exactly what it's going to be. And on a release date or a further trailer, Todd said everyone should be patient. I've speculated in a different video, and I'll put it in the little eye right now, that it could be coming out in 2 years' time. Something we actually learned from the no-clip documentary on the making of Fallout 76 is that they started work on Starfield right after Fallout 4. It was a different studio, or Bethesda Game Studios Austin specifically, that was actually working on the multiplayer Fallout, and Bethesda Game Studios Maryland, the main studio that made Fallout 4, Skyrim, Fallout 3, they only started working on Fallout 76 later in its development cycle, so they got a good amount of work done on Starfield before moving to 76. So as a follow-up to Todd Howard saying you could play the game, the interviewer asked, what exactly should we expect, or what's the game going to play like? So Todd's response to that was exactly, has what you expect and more. So we're probably going to expect the branching story, all the NPCs you interact with, like a traditional Fallout 4 or Skyrim experience, probably more Skyrim, more Fallout New Vegas. And the end more part are probably any of these new features they're implementing. It's probably them taking their same old formula that has been tried and true and actually just adding a bit more on top of it. So again, a big props to the interviewer here. In, I think, the reveal at E3, Todd Howard said Starfield would be a next-gen game, but what does that exactly mean? The interviewer asked, and if he meant that's going to be on next-generation consoles or on a new engine. And Todd Howard said a little bit of both, which I don't, how can you be a little bit on the next generation of consoles and a little bit of a new engine? But whatever. The console part, he actually said they're pretty iffy about. They genuinely don't have an answer to whether or not they'll be on the next generation of consoles, but it will definitely have a next generation engine. That's really exciting. A lot of new features can be brought to the table from that, and I'm just excited to see what they do with it and what new things we get. So the interviewer asked if there's going to be any other games that maybe they haven't announced, but Todd kind of said, no, you see our release schedule. Fallout 76, Starfield, and The Elder Scrolls 6 are going to be our next major releases. I'm sure we'll see some mobile games mixed in there also, though. And this one actually kind of burned. The interviewer asked about remasters, and Todd said he likes the charm of the old games, so he's not big on remasters. He's big on backwards compatibility, but the way he described it is like watching old movies. They look old, and it kind of brings back the nostalgia because they look old. So based on the statement there, it seems like he has no interest in remastering games. I mean, he did say it's his personal preference, but he's the director of the studio, so his personal preference kind of is what they do. Anyway, that wrapped it up for that interview. We got a lot out of it. I think that was actually one of the best interviews I've seen thus far with Todd Howard. It's probably going to be one of the last ones I cover unless one of these newer ones has like a ton of hard-hitting information. The only reason I covered this one is because they did actually have a lot of hard-hitting information. They really dove into a lot of the different questions I had on my mind. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.